Close your eyes and picture this. A small resort in the Catskill Mountains, summer of 1963. A young woman named Frances Baby Houseman meets a dance instructor named Johnny Castle. He's leather-jacketed, rebellious, and impossibly charismatic. When he takes her hand and says, "Nobody puts baby in a corner," millions of hearts melted simultaneously. That was Patrick Swayze in Dirty Dancing, the 1987 film that made him one of Hollywood's most beloved leading men. With his smoldering good looks, incredible dancing ability, and genuine warmth, Patrick captured something magical on screen. A rare combination of masculinity and sensitivity, strength and vulnerability, toughness and tenderness. For those of us who came of age in the 1980s and 90s, Patrick Swayze wasn't just an actor. He was the romantic ideal. Whether he was teaching Baby to dance, protecting Demi Moore's character from beyond the grave in Ghost, or playing a surf-riding bank robber in Point Break, Patrick embodied a kind of heroism that felt both aspirational and somehow accessible. But in January 2008, when Patrick was just 56 years old, he received news that would test every ounce of that heroic strength. He had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, one of the deadliest forms of cancer known to medicine. Doctors gave him mere months to live. What followed was a battle that would inspire millions and forever change how America talked about pancreatic cancer. Patrick Swayze, the man who had played heroes on screen his entire career, would prove himself a real-life hero in the face of unimaginable odds. His 2-month fight against this devastating disease showed the world what true courage looks like. Not the absence of fear, but the determination to keep fighting even when you're terrified. This is the story of Patrick Swayze's final battle, told not just as a tale of illness and loss, but as a testament to the human spirit's capacity for courage, love, and grace in the darkest of times. To understand the magnitude of Patrick Swayze's fight against cancer, we must first understand the extraordinary life he lived before that diagnosis. Patrick Wayne Swayze was born on August 18, 1952, in Houston, Texas, to parents who instilled in him both toughness and artistry. His father, Jesse, was a chemical plant engineer, a rough, masculine figure who taught Patrick to be strong and resilient. His mother, Patsy, was a choreographer and dance instructor who ran the Houston Jazz Ballet Company. This unique combination of influences would shape Patrick into the rare kind of man who could be both a serious ballet dancer and a tough, masculine leading man, something almost unheard of in Hollywood. Patrick began taking dance lessons from his mother at a young age, and despite the teasing from other boys, he stuck with it. He had natural talent and an incredible work ethic. After graduating high school, he moved to New York City to pursue dance professionally, training with the prestigious Harkness Ballet and later the Joffrey Ballet School. But fate had other plans. A football injury ended his dreams of becoming a principal ballet dancer, and Patrick turned his attention to acting. He began getting small roles in television shows and made his film debut in the roller disco movie Sketown, USA in 1979. Throughout the early 1980s, he built his career with roles in films like The Outsiders alongside Tom Cruise and Red Dawn. Then came 1987, and everything changed. Dirty Dancing was made on a tiny $6 million budget and wasn't expected to be a hit. The studio had so little faith in it that they nearly released it straight to video. But when it premiered in August 1987, audiences went wild. The film eventually grossed $214 million worldwide, and the soundtrack sold 32 million copies. Patrick Swayze became an overnight sensation. Women fell in love with Johnny Castle, with his intensity, his dedication, and that final dance scene where he walks through the crowd, takes Baby's hand, and lifts her above his head as "I've Had the Time of My Life" plays. It's one of the most iconic moments in cinema history, and Patrick made it look effortless. He followed Dirty Dancing with another massive hit, 90s Ghost, opposite Demi Moore and Whoopi Goldberg. The film about a murdered man's spirit trying to protect his girlfriend became the highest-grossing film of 2019, earning over $505 million worldwide. The pottery scene set to Unchained Melody is still one of the most romantic scenes ever filmed. Patrick was at the absolute peak of his career, one of the biggest movie stars in the world, beloved by millions. He had fame, success, and a 32-year marriage to his childhood sweetheart, Lisa Nimimi. Life seemed perfect. New Year's Eve 2007 should have been a celebration. Patrick and Lisa were at their ranch in New Mexico, welcoming in 2008, with champagne and optimism. But when Patrick tried to drink his champagne, something was terribly wrong. I tried to have champagne and it would be like pouring acid, on an open wound, Patrick would later recall in an emotional interview with Barbara Walters. At first, Patrick thought it was just indigestion. Many of us have experienced heartburn or stomach discomfort and dismissed it as nothing serious. But this was different. His indigestion issues got gigantic and constant, he explained. He started losing weight rapidly, about 20 pounds seemingly overnight. Then one morning, Patrick came to Lisa with a question that would change their lives forever. "Do my eyes look yellow?" he asked her. Lisa looked at her husband and saw what he was talking about. His eyes had taken on a yellowish tint, and his skin looked jaundiced. This wasn't normal. This wasn't just indigestion or stress. Something was seriously wrong. Patrick wanted to wait a week to see a doctor. Men, particularly tough guys like Patrick, often downplay their symptoms and put off medical care. But Lisa knew better. Yellow eyes just doesn't sound normal, she thought. We need to go tomorrow. Thank God, she insisted. They went to the doctor, and the moment the physician saw Patrick's yellow eyes and heard about his symptoms, he sent them immediately for a CT scan. There was no time to waste. In January 2008, Patrick Swayze received the diagnosis that every person fears: cancer. But not just any cancer. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, the most advanced and deadliest form. To understand how devastating this news was, you need to know what pancreatic cancer is and why it's so deadly. The pancreas is a small organ located deep in your abdomen, behind your stomach. It produces enzymes that help digest food and hormones that regulate blood sugar, including insulin. Pancreatic cancer occurs when malignant cells form in the tissues of the pancreas. The problem is that the pancreas is hidden deep inside the body, so tumors can grow large and spread to other organs before causing any noticeable symptoms. By the time most people discover they have pancreatic cancer, it has already progressed to an advanced stage. The median survival for pancreatic cancer patients is probably 5 months, according to medical experts. Think about that. 5 months. Half of all patients with pancreatic cancer are expected to live less than 5 months after diagnosis. Fewer than 1 in 4 patients who have the disease that is spread outside the pancreas are alive a year later. Patrick had stage 4 cancer, meaning it had already spread beyond his pancreas. The disease had already spread to his liver, one of the most common sites for pancreatic cancer metastasis. His prognosis was measured in months, not years. For a man who had spent his entire life in motion, dancing, doing his own stunts, training in martial arts, riding horses on his ranch, this diagnosis was incomprehensible. At just 56 years old, in what should have been the prime of his life, Patrick Swayze was told he was dying. Most people in Patrick's position would have retreated from public life. They would have canceled all work commitments, focused entirely on treatment, and spent their remaining time privately with family. Patrick Swayze did the opposite. In March 2008, just weeks after his diagnosis, he didn't want speculation or rumors. He wanted to control his own story and face this challenge head-on, just as he had faced every other challenge in his life. "I've never been one to run from a challenge," Swayze told Barbara Walters in his first major interview after the diagnosis. But he was also refreshingly honest about his fear. When Walters asked if he was scared, "I will be so either truthful or stupid as to say no. But then I immediately, when I say that, I have to say yes, I am," he admitted. "You can bet that I'm going through hell. And I've only seen the beginning of it." This honesty was extraordinary. Here was one of Hollywood's toughest leading men, a guy who had played Special Forces soldiers and tough street fighters, admitting he was terrified. "There's a lot of fear here," Swayze said. "There's a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, I'm scared. Yeah, I'm angry. Yeah, I'm asking why me. Yeah, I'm all this stuff." But despite the fear and anger, Patrick made a decision. He was going to fight. He enrolled in a clinical trial at Stanford University, trying an experimental drug called Vitalanib, and then he did something that shocked everyone. He went back to work. Patrick had been cast in a new A&E series called The Beast, where he played an undercover FBI agent. Filming was scheduled to begin soon, and every advisor told him to cancel. How could he possibly work while undergoing chemotherapy for stage 4 cancer? Patrick refused to quit. He was going to film that television series, Cancer or Not. What Patrick Swayze accomplished during the filming of The Beast is nothing short of miraculous. While undergoing aggressive chemotherapy treatments every weekend, Patrick showed up to set 5 days a week and put in 12 to 1 4-hour days. Let that sink in. He was working longer hours than most healthy people, all while battling one of the deadliest cancers known to medicine and enduring the brutal side effects of chemotherapy. He shot a whole TV series when he was fighting pancreatic cancer, which was extraordinary because he was putting in 14 hours a day, 5 days a week, and getting chemo on the weekend. Lisa recalled, as she put it, using a Texas expression, he was kicking butt and taking names. Dr. George Fisher, the oncologist who treated Patrick at Stanford, later told CNN that he had doubts about whether Patrick could actually manage this demanding schedule. I had my doubts as to whether he could actually do it or not, and we had many conversations around that fact, Fisher said. Swayze understood how difficult the treatment could be, and he understood how difficult the disease could be. But it's just like Patrick to just say he's gonna do it and, damn it, nobody should get in his way. The chemotherapy Patrick received was gemcitabine, a drug commonly used for pancreatic cancer patients. While it doesn't cause the severe nausea and hair loss associated with some other chemotherapy drugs, it still has significant side effects: fatigue, weakness, fever, and flu-like symptoms. Most patients struggle to maintain normal activities while on this drug. Patrick was working full-time in a physically demanding role. The Beast ran for 1 season and 13 episodes. Patrick's performance was powerful and intense, showing no signs of the battle he was fighting off camera. Viewers who didn't know about his diagnosis would never have guessed he was terminally ill. But maintaining this pace came at a cost. Patrick was exhausted. The cancer was progressing despite treatment, and he was losing weight rapidly, his body being consumed by the disease even as he fought to keep working. In January 2009, exactly 1 year after his diagnosis, Patrick Swayze sat down for his most famous interview. Barbara Walters had interviewed Patrick once before, back in 1988, at the height of his Dirty Dancing fame. Now she sat across from him again, but this time, the conversation was about survival. Patrick was gaunt but determined. Just 20% of those who are diagnosed with pancreatic cancer are still alive a year later, and Patrick had made it to that 1-year mark, already beating the odds for many patients. When Walters brought up the grim statistics about pancreatic cancer survival rates, Patrick's response became legendary, echoing the famous lyrics from Dirty Dancing's Do You Love Me song. Watch me now. Patrick looked directly into the camera and said with fierce determination, "Watch me. You watch what I pull off." That moment galvanized millions of viewers. Here is Patrick Swayze, the romantic hero of their youth, refusing to accept a death sentence. He wasn't going gentle into that good night. He was raging against the dying of the light with every ounce of strength he had left. Patrick did not want to become the poster boy for cancer, Lisa later revealed. He had wanted to keep his battle private, to fight this disease away from the public eye. But once people discovered his diagnosis, his huge heart kept him from sitting idly by and not stepping up to do what he could to help. Lisa reflected on Patrick's heroic qualities. I used to always say, particularly with the kinds of roles that Patrick liked to play, he always liked to be the hero. I always said, you give him a sword, a cape, and a horse, and he's a happy man. But I tell you what, when it came to him fighting his illness, this disease, you really saw he really was a hero. While Patrick fought valiantly, the reality of pancreatic cancer was unforgiving. Pancreatic cancer is the 3rd leading cause of cancer-related deaths in the United States, behind only lung cancer and cancers of the colon and rectum. More than 62,000 Americans are diagnosed with pancreatic cancer each year, and nearly 50,000 die from the disease. The symptoms of pancreatic cancer are often vague and easily mistaken for other conditions: abdominal pain or back pain, loss of appetite, nausea, unexplained weight loss, jaundice, yellowing of the skin and eyes, new-onset diabetes because the pancreas is located so deep in the abdomen. Tumors can grow large before causing symptoms. By the time most patients are diagnosed, the cancer has already spread to other organs, making it virtually impossible to cure. The 5-year survival rate for pancreatic cancer is approximately 9%, one of the lowest survival rates for any cancer. This means that only about 9 out of every 100 people diagnosed with pancreatic cancer will still be alive 5 years after diagnosis. The average survival for patients diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer is less than 1 year. Patrick would eventually survive for 20 months after his diagnosis, far exceeding initial expectations. Risk factors for pancreatic cancer include smoking, one of the biggest risk factors, obesity, chronic pancreatitis, diabetes, family history of pancreatic cancer, age, risk increases after 45, with most cases occurring after 65, heavy alcohol consumption. Patrick said he had been a heavy smoker most of his life and that he believed the habit contributed to the development of his disease. He continued smoking even after his diagnosis, though medical experts noted that once stage 4 cancer has spread throughout the body, continuing to smoke likely didn't significantly change the trajectory of the disease at that point. Throughout Patrick's battle with cancer, one constant remained: the unwavering support and love of his wife, Lisa Niemi. Their love story was as romantic as any movie Patrick had ever starred in. Patrick and Lisa met when she was just 14 years old and a student at Patrick's mother's dance studio in Houston. He was 18 and already an accomplished dancer. They fell in love, married in 1975 when Lisa was 19, but they worked through every challenge together, building a partnership that was both romantic and deeply practical. Lisa was Patrick's collaborator, his dance partner, his confidant, and his anchor. When Patrick was diagnosed with cancer, Lisa became his primary caregiver. She watched as the disease ravaged her husband's body. She held him through the pain. She encouraged him when he wanted to give up, and she advocated fiercely for his care and his choices, even when others questioned his decision to keep working. Lisa recalls a particularly poignant moment during Patrick's illness. They were walking on their ranch in New Mexico when Patrick grabbed her hand. It was a beautiful day, and his eyes glistened, and he said, "I want to live." Lisa remembered. That simple statement, "I want to live," captured everything about Patrick's fight. He wasn't ready to go. He had so much more he wanted to do, so much more time he wanted with Lisa, so many more moments he wanted to experience. The unfairness of it all, that this vibrant, talented, beloved man was being taken so young, was devastating. We fought it for as long as his body could. It was a tough journey, but it was worth it. When you love someone and they're on this earth with you, every moment is precious. Every bit of fight we did was worth it for that extra time, Lisa said. By mid-2009, it became clear that Patrick's time was running out. In June, The Beast was canceled, officially due to low ratings, but everyone knew the real reason. Patrick was simply too sick to continue. The cancer had metastasized further throughout his liver, and likely to other organs. The chemotherapy was no longer working effectively. Patrick's body, which had always been his instrument for dancing, for stunts, for expressing emotion on screen, was failing him. The symptoms of advanced pancreatic cancer are brutal. Toward the end, patients can experience increasing abdominal pain, nausea, loss of appetite, very low energy, a sort of wasting syndrome, explained medical experts. Many patients simply don't feel up to doing anything. Patrick continued fighting as long as he could. He tried experimental treatments. He maintained hope even when hope seemed irrational. But cancer is a merciless disease, and stage 4 pancreatic cancer is among the most merciless of all. Following what Lisa called a heartfelt, grueling, tough, determined fight for 22 months, Patrick Swayze died on September 14, 2009, at his home in Los Angeles. He was just 57 years old. The world mourned. Tributes poured in from fellow actors, directors, fans, and people whose lives Patrick had touched through his work. But perhaps the most touching tributes came from the pancreatic cancer community. Patients and families who had watched Patrick's public battle and drawn strength from his courage. Patrick Swayze was one of the first high-profile patients to go public with his diagnosis, for a disease that few Americans knew about and few researchers studied at the time. Before Alex Trebek, before Steve Jobs, it was Swayze who turned the world's attention to pancreatic cancer. He absolutely changed the conversation that we were having about this disease. According to Julie Fleshman, president and CEO of the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, he gave people a reason to say, "Oh, Patrick Swayze, pancreatic cancer, wow." If there was nothing that could be done for him, this is something that we really need to get involved in and we really need to change. Joe Hines, director of the UCLA Agi Hirschberg Center for Pancreatic Disease, agreed. He was very impactful. It's a disease that, because it's been rare and most people don't do very well from that traditionally, there wasn't a lot of attention and there weren't a lot of researchers focused on it. Now, over the past decade, with advocacy like Mr. Swayze did and others, there's excellent science going on, and that clearly is translating into improved treatment. Patrick's openness about his symptoms, particularly his interview where he described the champagne feeling like acid and his eyes turning yellow, helped educate millions of people about the warning signs of pancreatic cancer. Many lives have likely been saved because people recognized these symptoms in themselves or loved ones and sought medical attention earlier thanks to Patrick's public disclosure. The Barbara Walters interview, watched by millions, created a national conversation about a disease that had previously received little attention. Donations to pancreatic cancer research organizations surged. More patients enrolled in clinical trials. More researchers began focusing on this deadly disease. After Patrick's death, Lisa Naomi Swayze could have retreated into private grief. Instead, she chose to continue the fight Patrick had started. Just because Patrick passed on didn't mean that fight was over, and I was carrying that on for him, Lisa said. Since 2010, she has worked tirelessly with the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, PanCan, advocating for increased research funding on Capitol Hill and helping raise awareness about the disease. In 2017, 8 years after Patrick's death, Lisa honored his memory by donating proceeds from an auction of Patrick's personal items, including the iconic leather jacket from Dirty Dancing and the silk shirt from Ghost, to benefit pancreatic cancer research. Lisa eventually found love again, remarrying in 2014. She's been open about the fact that finding new love doesn't diminish what she and Patrick shared. I love Patrick so deeply. And it's interesting because that hasn't changed in finding new love, she said, adding that one of her widow friends reasoned that this is because love comes from the same well. Just because you lose someone doesn't mean love stops, Lisa explained. She and her new husband, Albert DePrisco, felt blessed to find each other because they both still had a lot of love to give. Lisa has also been vocal about the toll of being a caregiver for someone with pancreatic cancer. The patient gets a lot of attention. And for good reason, she said, noting that PanCan offers support for both those battling the disease and their caregivers because it happens to everyone in the family. Pancreatic cancer is happening to everyone. In the years since Patrick's death, there has been progress in pancreatic cancer research, though not as much as advocates would hope. The 5-year survival rate has improved slightly, but remains around 12%, still devastatingly low. New treatment approaches are being studied. Immunotherapy combinations, targeted therapies based on genetic mutations, better chemotherapy regimens, improved surgical techniques, earlier detection methods. The challenge remains early detection. If pancreatic cancer is caught at stage 1, before it has spread, the 5-year survival rate jumps to about 44%. But only about 10% of cases are found at this early stage because symptoms typically don't appear until the disease has advanced. Researchers are working on blood tests and other screening methods that might catch pancreatic cancer earlier. While these are still experimental, they offer hope that one day pancreatic cancer might be detected and treated before it becomes deadly. That Swayze survived nearly 2 years with stage 4 pancreatic cancer is quite an accomplishment, noted Dr. Grau. Fisher, Patrick's oncologist. While we wish Patrick could have had many more years, the fact that he lived significantly longer than the typical prognosis is a testament both to his fighting spirit and to the treatments he received. Lessons from Patrick's battle. Patrick Swayze's battle with pancreatic cancer teaches us several profound lessons. 1. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Patrick admitted he was terrified, angry, and asking, "Why me?" True courage means fighting even when you're afraid, continuing even when the odds are impossible. 2. Living fully until the end, rather than giving up when diagnosed. Patrick worked, loved, and lived as fully as possible for as long as possible. He showed that a terminal diagnosis doesn't mean life is over, it means every moment matters more. 3. The power of love. Lisa and Patrick's relationship sustained him through his darkest hours. Having someone who loves you unconditionally, who will fight alongside you, makes all the difference. 4. Using your platform for good. Patrick could have kept his diagnosis private. Instead, he used his fame to bring attention to a neglected disease, potentially saving lives through increased awareness. 5. The importance of clinical trials. Patrick participated in experimental treatment trials at Stanford. While they didn't cure him, they contributed to knowledge that may help future patients. Clinical trial participation is crucial for advancing cancer treatment. 6. Recognizing warning signs. Patrick's story educated millions about pancreatic cancer symptoms. If you or a loved one experiences persistent abdominal pain, Unexplained weight loss or jaundice? See a doctor immediately. 7. The value of everyday Patrick's fight for 22 months instead of the predicted few months meant 22 more months of sunrises, conversations with Lisa, moments of laughter, and experiences of love. Every day matters. Today, Patrick Swayze would have been 73 years old if pancreatic cancer hadn't taken him. It's hard to imagine what he might have accomplished in those additional years. More films, more dancing, more time with Lisa, perhaps grandchildren to spoil. But while we mourn what was lost, we also celebrate what remains. Patrick's incredible body of work, his impact on pancreatic cancer awareness, and the example he set for how to face death with courage and grace. When we watch Dirty Dancing now, when Johnny Castle lifts baby above his head in that final dance, it means something different. We're not just watching a movie. We're watching a man who would later show us what real strength looks like. Not the choreographed strength of a dance routine or an action sequence, but the raw, genuine strength required to face your own mortality and keep fighting anyway. When we watch Ghost, when Sam Wheat tells Molly ditto instead of I love you, we think about Patrick and Lisa, about the depth of love that sustained them through the worst possible circumstances, about how love really can transcend even death. Patrick Swayze played heroes throughout his career, but he never played a greater hero than himself. He took on the role of pancreatic cancer patient and advocate with the same commitment and intensity he brought to every character he ever portrayed. And in doing so, he gave hope to millions and advanced a cause that will save lives for generations to come. If you take one thing away from Patrick Swayze's story, let it be this: pancreatic cancer is deadly, but early detection makes a huge difference. Know the warning signs: persistent abdominal or back pain, unexplained weight loss, loss of appetite, jaundice, yellowing of skin and eyes, new onset diabetes, nausea and vomiting, changes in the stool. If you experience these symptoms, especially multiple symptoms together, see a doctor immediately. Don't wait, don't assume it's nothing. Patrick waited a few weeks before seeing a doctor, and by then his cancer had already reached stage 4. Earlier detection might have given him more time, or even saved his life. If you smoke, quit. Smoking is one of the biggest risk factors for pancreatic cancer. Maintain a healthy weight, limit alcohol consumption, and eat a healthy diet rich in fruits and vegetables. While these lifestyle changes can't guarantee you won't get pancreatic cancer, they significantly reduce your risk. And finally, support pancreatic cancer research. Organizations like the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network are funding crucial research that could lead to better treatments and earlier detection methods. The progress made since Patrick's death is real, but there's so much more work to be done. Patrick Swayze's life was cut tragically short, but his impact endures. Every time someone recognizes the symptoms of pancreatic cancer early because they learned about them from Patrick's story, his legacy continues. Every time a researcher makes progress toward better treatments or earlier detection, Patrick's advocacy bears fruit. Every time someone facing cancer draws strength from Patrick's example of courage and determination, his spirit lives on. Lisa Nemi Swayze said it best: "Cancer may have taken him, but it didn't beat him." Patrick Swayze died on September 14, 2009, but he was never defeated. He fought with everything he had. He lived with passion and purpose until his final breath. And he left behind a legacy that will continue inspiring people for generations to come. The final dance scene in Dirty Dancing ends with Johnny and Baby in each other's arms, triumphant, having overcome every obstacle. In a way, that's how we should remember Patrick Swayze, not as a victim of cancer, but as someone who faced the ultimate challenge with grace, courage, and love, and who never stopped fighting, never stopped living, never stopped inspiring. "Nobody puts Baby in a corner," Patrick famously said. And nobody, not even cancer, could put Patrick Swayze in a corner either. He lived on his own terms, fought on his own terms, and left this world having made an indelible impact on everyone who knew him, and millions who never met him but loved him anyway. Rest in peace, Patrick Swayze. Your dance may have ended, but the music plays on, and your legacy continues to move us all.